Hello, Packers fans. Welcome into PackersNews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill, joined by Pete Dougherty here from Acisure Stadium, or formerly known as Heinz Field, formerly known as Three Rivers Stadium, home of the Pittsburgh Steelers, is the point where, Pete, the Packers have fallen yet again in a close one-possession game. This one, a 23-19 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, dropping them to 3-6 overall. You and I were kind of talking after the game. It kind of feels like, what can we say that hasn't been said before? Because after last week, where they sort of looked like they had found a groove with a lot of their issues, offense took a big step forward today for most of the time, but is that fair to look at as a positive, or is it just kind of same old with this Packers team?
Yeah, I mean, if as far as the season goes, it's same old. But if you broaden the scope of how things have been going, if what you're looking for is more just improvement than actual, going to the playoffs, which, that ain't happening, then they did, as you said. I mean, the offense, that was the best game, even though they scored more points against the Bears. This is the best I guess the best they've looked since the opener that way. But they had 3 chances to win the game in the last 12 minutes or whatever. And I think that they only get 3 points out of those trips. I think so. And so it's same old that way. But, if you're taking a bigger picture, it's another step from. I mean, they look better than they did last week.
Little positives, little silver linings, and especially with such a young group, I guess that's kind of what you can take. Jaden Reed was asked, do you take some comfort or some positive out of the fact that this did look like a more cohesive offense for much of the game? And he was like, well, yeah, you've got to take it kind of somewhere, and this is where it's going to happen. And he said, quote, talking about how many young guys they're playing with and the fact that they did take a step forward, there's always rain before sunshine. Like, you've got to have rain before you can have sun. And this, I think the quote is actually, there's always rain before rainbows. But close enough. We'll give him that one. Is that just what you have to take from it too if you're a Packers fan? Yeah,
I mean, you can take, they're free to look at it any way they want. They're going to have smart money says there's going to be other close games like this down the stretch of the season, and they've had some already. They need to learn how to win these games. Now, the way to do it is to go through it. I just immediately thought back to Aaron Rodgers, and I think he lost, it was 6 or 7, might even have more than that, one-score games in his first year as starter. So they did go through this with him too, but they didn't have the really bad stretch of offense that they had during that 4-game losing streak. So yeah, you can look at it whichever way you want. There's evidence to back up any view you want, but they are going to get more chances, and they do. Part of the growth will be, do they figure out how to win a game like this? Because this was a eminently winnable game. Yeah.
Let me throw one stat at you, though, to kind of get your take on this before we hear from some of the players. Jordan Love has thrown 10 interceptions this season. 5 of those have been while he's targeting Christian Watson. I'm trying to remember. I want to say 3 off the top of my head that I can remember came in the end zone. 1 today, and I'm not even counting the last play because that was sort of a scramble, everybody go. But 1 in the end zone during the fourth quarter, 1 versus the Raiders, and I want to say 1 versus the Falcons. Was that their last shot, and it was to Watson in the end zone? Is there anything to make of that?
Maybe. One thing, I wonder if it's starting to look like, Watson's body control still needs work, where he's backpedaling to be able to go straight up for the ball instead of falling back. And I don't know. I mean, some guys are just so naturally gifted, and I don't know if it's a talent he just doesn't have, or maybe he's still getting used to, this tall, fast body that he's got, and maybe it'll improve, later this year or next year. So that's a good question. But yeah, that's probably not coincidental. That that's the guy they want to be their guy, and he's just not quite ready to make those plays.
Let's hear from Watson and Reed and a couple other guys in the locker room on what they thought of today's offensive performance.
What's the stronger feeling, the fact that you guys are able to get yourselves in these positions to win, or the fact that you can't finish it?
Ideally, we wouldn't want to be in a position to have to do it at the end, but I mean, I'm both, honestly. I think it's tough to not be able to get it done at the end. It's obviously tough to put yourself in that position to begin with.
Is there anything else that can be done to sort of shoot those 50-50 balls in your favor, or is that just kind of each situation, each play just has its own little thing?
I mean, each situation is different. There's coverage on the one in the end zone. That one just they're basically doubling me in the end zone. That's a tough throw and a tough catch, regardless. It's different, each situation.
You got to develop somewhere. So you start somewhere, and during that process, you learn, you grow. And we're just here to develop each game and each week. I mean, the sun don't shine without the rain, so it got to rain sometimes for you to see the sun. So we just here to every day stack a day and get better.
Pete, Watson, of course, had the targets for interceptions in the end zone. Though this was also if a blocked extra point had not been blocked and the Packers had gotten that extra point, they could have kicked a field goal on their final drive and sent this game to overtime. We talk about the games that have ended on interceptions in the end zone. There's also been 2 or 3 games now that could have gone another way if not for a missed field goal or a missed extra point. I know you talked to Josiah DeGuara in the locker room afterwards. Did you get any sort of insight into what happened on that blocked extra point?
So he said that obviously it was his fault.
Okay.
And, he's got to stay tight to Walker there because they can't let anybody get in between him. But he said he's just got to get a much bigger piece of the guy rushing because, the guy didn't just block it. He stuffed it. He was in there by a mile. He almost blocked it with his chest, it looked like. So that was – and I didn't get to see a good replay, so I don't know if he just just got a hand on him or what happened there. But that was one of the worst blocks I've ever – like one of the easiest blocks I've ever seen from an outside guy. Usually they're diving and just tip, and he just smothered that ball. So, yeah, that's huge. The whole the final 10 minutes play out so differently because it's a tie game instead of or tie or 3-point game instead of 1 or 4-point difference. And that's just they were chasing. I saw Mike Heller on Twitter. He's a state radio host. He said they were chasing that point all game, and he was right. They did. They chased that point all game.
Yeah. Other side of special teams, they finally got a huge return from Keyshawn Nixon that they had been looking for. So, as it gets colder, probably look to see him continue to do that a little bit more. But on defense, Pete, this game opened up with just abysmal run defense yet again. Right, abysmal. And they were able to sort of clamp it down as the second half went in, but by the time all was said and done, they gave up over 200 yards rushing yet again. Najee Harris, number 30, Warren, and it wasn't even like there were a lot of missed tackles. Let's make that clear. There were a lot of missed tackles, but more often than not, they just had a clear lane, perfect blocking, perfect wall. What do you change?
I thought, especially early, and this is just a general impression, just writing down personnel each play, nickel, whatever. It seemed like they were in nickel an awful lot, and the Steelers would come in with 3 wides, but they were doing it with the purpose of getting the Packers to play nickel, and then they ran it on them, and they just stuffed it right down their throat. And they did have some good, their last couple possessions, they were able to run clock, with a couple good runs too. So it just looked to me like the Joe Barry fell into that trap again of playing a lot of nickel. Now, after the second drive where they ramped it down their throat, then he started playing more base and also getting, if they were nickel, he was getting extra guys in the box. And so that seemed to make a difference because the defense did improve. They were a lot better in the second half and later in the first half. But, that puts you behind the 8 ball to be giving up touchdowns they're so easy. They just stuffed it right down their throat. In the NFL, you can't allow that to happen.
Let's actually hear from some of the guys in the locker room on what they thought went wrong with the run defense in the first half.
It's all communication. At the end of the day, communication, knowing where you fit, and at the end of the day, it's just winning blocks and beating blocks. We got to look at the film and see what was going on, but definitely got to be better in the run game.
We just got to be more consistent. And that's people that's supposed to make the play, just make the play. Everybody just needs to play sound and just play how we need to play. Everybody know the standard. Everybody know what it look like. You just gotta go out there and do it. And today was one of those days that we had to struggle at first, but we ended up picking it up towards the end.
Pete, overall, Matt LaFleur said that, there's growth to be seen from this young team, and that's a positive he's going to take away out of this. As you said at the very beginning of this, probably not looking at the playoffs this year. So this is what you've got to be looking for is growth. Let's actually hear from Matt LaFleur on what he had to say about his young team.
We were right there at the end of the game and had an opportunity to go win the game, and twice. And like many times that we've seen on tape, their defense makes a play. They got 2 picks to kind of close it out, and I thought there was a lot of things that we did well in all 3 phases, and then there's some things that were just really killer. A couple plays here and there. Obviously, offensively, the turnovers in the red zone was a problem today. Defensively, stopping the run, we had way too many missed tackles, and then on special teams, anytime you get a PAT blocked, I mean, it just changes some of the decision making at the end of a game where you're going for touchdowns instead of having the option of kicking a field goal to tie the game up. But I do think that there was a lot of good that came out of this in terms of just we knew we challenged our team to go out there and compete for 4 quarters, and I felt from the opening kickoff to the final whistle we did that, and I'm confident if we continue with this that we will end up on the other side of this.
Pete, the Packers head back home now to face the Los Angeles Chargers. This was really the game today versus the Steelers where if they had any hope of getting out of this four-game stretch that is ahead of them, now a 3-game stretch, they needed to win this game to just kind of stumble through slightly unscathed. That's now not going to happen. But they head home, face the Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert. From what you've saw today, is there a plan in place, especially with the offense and sort of seeing the efficiency they were able to put together that could defeat that Chargers team, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen next week, and Derwin James?
Yeah, maybe the weather, for one thing, will be working in their favor against the team from California. But, yeah, but besides that, they actually looked like a fully functioning offense today, and they hadn't done that. It was just in fits and starts, last week, and before that it was brutal. So, they do have that, and you definitely could see maturity and growth, and the receivers making more plays. Love looking a little more comfortable. I know the stats are brutal, but overall, Jordan Love had a pretty solid game.
He didn't seem as indecisive today as he has been the past few weeks.
So next week will be a very winnable game. Also, the Chargers have talent, but they're not world beaters either. And Herbert's a really talented quarterback, but yeah, that'll be a winnable game. They're not going to be favored, I don't think, but it'll be a winnable game.
Well, to paraphrase Jaden Reed, only rainbows after rain. We'll see if they get a rainbow next week versus the Charger. From Acisure Stadium, we're going to figure out how to say that before we leave here. He's Pete. I'm Kassidy. We'll see you next time.